Hello, 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 everyone. I'm Dr. Nichol here with Trunnis today. We are here to talk about a new book. You can see it on the screen. It is called Stories of Children Lost. And today we are here to celebrate those kiddos. And I have my book. I'm going to hold it up. This is the back of the book. And we have 8 parents that have entrusted DMP Publishing with their stories and have told you about their kiddos, how and what happened to them, but more importantly, the story of how they're pressing through. And, you go through the loss and you really don't get through the loss. You go through the loss, you deal with the loss, but you still have to keep living. And you live that with your kid in mind, but figuring out a way to honor them as you go. And today, that's what we're here to talk about. I encourage you to go get your Kindle copy today. It's 99 cents. I'm one that I buy the Kindle. I buy the book though too, because I'm a person that I like to have the book in hand. But if you're traveling, you don't want to take 500 books with you. So you have it on your Kindle and you can always read it or share it with other people while you're out and about. So Trunnis, today is the day. And I am so excited. When you brought, we're going to be doing a series of stories of, and when you brought this concept to me, I just lost you on video, but when you brought this concept to me, I was really honored, first of all, that you brought me this concept, and I've lost him completely. So I'm going to talk until he comes back. But this is a heart project. I keep calling it that because these are the stories that when I started DMP Publishing with my husband, this was what I wanted to do. I wanted to share the stories that are going to mean something, that are going to go further than just a book. And I know that's Trunnis's heart for this project. This is a personal project for him. There he is. Let me grab him again. Hello, you're back.
There you go.
He's he's not home in his own space, but this is a personal project for him, and I want him to tell you a little bit about why this project, and just give us a little bit of info about why you wanted to do this.
Well, first of all, Nichol, thank you so much. This book meant a lot to me, and the process of even starting the book was so much. And it's funny, it's kind of weird how my camera just went out like that. Because it kind of shows some of the issues going on with the book. We had a great process going. I live in Asheville, North Carolina. And if you are watching, I was down for an entire month because of the hurricane and because of logistics and infrastructure issues, power, water, you name it. And one thing I want to do before we start talking about the book is I want to thank Nichol so much for really stepping up and helping. Yes, this is the first book in a series of books of stories of. This is Stories of Children Lost. This one means, it means a lot to me. I lost my daughter back in June of 2015. And I remember just feeling lost and feeling alone. The first person who came to my aid was my brother. If you know him, his name is David Goggins. Obviously, he's extremely powerful, very, very popular, motivating speaker. He's a Navy SEAL, all that. Him and my mother drove overnight from Nashville, Tennessee to Indianapolis, where I was living at the time. And I remember my mom saying, she was the first person that made me realize something. She says, I can't help you. I don't know how to help you through this. And she didn't say that. She didn't say that just to say, I can't help you. She said it because she was helpless. This is something that she never went through, thank God. And she didn't have to. she didn't have the resources there to help. And as I went on through this journey, I found out that my mother wasn't the only one that didn't know how to help. It was other people. I mean, this is an unnatural thing. This week, a matter of fact, 11 years ago this week, I lost my father. And I remember getting up on that day and getting up and remembering my dad. And I remembered him fondly. And I was like, oh, wow, he's gone. And that's just a natural process, you know. But when the anniversary of my mother, or I'm sorry, the anniversary of my daughter, when she passed, it is not that at all. It is, oh my gosh, you know, what would she be doing right now? Because I'm supposed to be witnessing that. And it's a different thing, you know. There's a lot of things that my father did in the past that I wasn't alive to witness, you know. But in this case, you raise a child so you can witness those milestones. You can witness those graduations. You can witness those marriages. You can witness all of those steps that kids take, and you're not there. So you're as a parent, you're robbed of that. And when you see parents of other kids in that age group, even friends of the parents, it really does get you. I remember my daughter's very best friend, and she is such a sweet person. She reached out and she says, hey, I want you to come to high school graduation. I want to invite you to high school graduation. And as beautiful and as loving as that gesture was, especially because she went to a very large school and they had very limited tickets. Okay. But as beautiful as that gesture was, I couldn't go. Not because I didn't want to see her in her success. I couldn't go because I know what was going to be going through my mind when I sat in that auditorium was my daughter, you know, her last name is Goggins, and you just skipped her name alphabetically. Her name was supposed to be there. So I couldn't hear that. And so when I came out with this book, you know, there was the idea of this book, there was not a lot of resources for people like us. It's a large club. Unfortunately, it's growing every day through so many different methods, through sickness, through homicide, through suicide, through drug addiction, through all of these different ways, through accidents. It is growing every day. And I wanted this book to be a resource to parents. So when they can read, they can understand from a parent's point of view exactly what they're going through.
Wow, that's a lot. No, I get that. I mean, I've never, thankfully, my children are all here, but I've been in that space with, and one of the authors I know personally, I know you personally, but I knew her when it happened. And you are at a loss when you know someone because you don't know what to say, mm-hmm. and you don't know what to do. And I think this book will help those people as well as the parents, but it can be something, the resources, the one thing I wanted to say is the back of this book is full of pages of resources for the parents and even for the family and friends of the parents, of places that you can go to get help, places you can go to send them things. That was very important to you to have that. And I think it's a great thing. And it's about community. It's about having that support system that understands where you're at and can relate. And so, anything else you want to share before I'm going to bring in Dr. Heather and chat with her for a couple minutes?
Absolutely. No, go ahead.
All right, let's grab her. I got to find her down here. My mouse wants to. Good morning, love.
Good morning. Thank you.
So you finish out our book, which I love that we did this. And I asked Trunnis where you go, and he's like, she's the last chapter. And I'm so glad that he brought you in as that final chapter, because you are a licensed psychologist. I know I said it wrong as soon as it came out of my mouth. But you specialize in grief and helping parents through this kinds of thing. And so you wrote a chapter and went through some of the things that you talk about. And I loved your chapter, and I was just reading through it, and I don't normally take the time to read the book until it's published because I usually don't have time. But this one, I read the whole thing because I was just like, I was drawn to it. I just had to. I just felt like I needed to know all of the kids. I needed to know everything about this book. And if you grab this book and start reading it, you're probably going to finish it in that day, because you're just gonna. It's not a long book, but you're just gonna want to hear it. It will be an emotional book, I will tell you that. But just tell me a little bit about what you do, and just the importance of seeking out somebody as that support system that's outside of the issue, the problem, the circumstance. Because I know that's when you're in it, all the people around you are in it too. And sometimes just going outside of that group can just make a whole lot of difference.
Yeah. So like you said, I'm Dr. Heather Taylor. I'm a licensed psychologist. I'm based out of the Seattle area. And I got into this grief and loss work 15 years ago this month. I lost my younger brother and had a hard time finding my own grief resources. So I've watched my parents navigate child loss the last 15 years, and had my own challenges finding a grief therapist. So I was like, I'm going to go back to school and become one. And that's was my heart in this career change, because at the time I was going to be a librarian. So definitely a bit of a pivot. And, I just, like Trunnis was saying, this is an out of order loss. And so many parents don't have context for how this is going to show up in me physically, emotionally, socially, behaviorally, mentally, all the different areas that it's going to impact my life. You know that you're going to be different and altered, but you're not aware of the depth of those changes and how that can ripple as you learn to carry your loss, because your grief never goes away. It just gets different. And so I think that was kind of how I approached the chapter, is what's the modern grief take? What's the context? What's the nitty gritty that is going to help these parents feel sane when nothing feels sane, nothing feels okay? To give them some normalizing language that, like, how my grief is showing up for me, that's okay. I'm not grieving wrong. It doesn't have to look one way. There's nothing linear about this process. And so that was really my heart and intention with the chapter, and then giving some context and tools at the end, just to help with filling out the resources.
Yeah. And I think that's what you said is very important to put out there, is nobody grieves the same way. Everybody, it is, number one, it's your own situation. Nobody leaves us the same way either. And our personalities, the way we deal with things, I'm a sentimental person. I feel things, I feel everything deeply. I watch a show, I cry. My husband laughs at me, okay? And he's the opposite. He's the big tough guy that shows no emotion. I've seen him cry once in my life. But so he holds it, and I am a blubbering mess. Okay. So but I also know that God gives us strength, and you're going to hear that from a couple of these authors as well. But he gives us the ability to deal with things we don't realize we can deal with in the moment. And I know sometimes you're in a haze until you get that moment. And that is one of the strengths that we have as parents. And I've seen that from some of the people that I know, that they just get through it. And then when it's over is when they allow themselves to feel it, because that's what you have to do. Otherwise, you're not going to get through it. Yeah. So I'm so glad you were along on the journey with everyone. And I hope that if anybody sees this, I believe I read in your chapter that you are a nationwide.
Yeah, so
I love that.
I'm a SIPAC certified therapist, so part of an agreement among 42 states that are part of SIPAC. So I'm able to provide telehealth services for individuals needing support in 42 states.
I love that. So if you want to reach out to her information is in the book. That is all the author's information in the book. There's so much in the book. You got to get the book. So we are going to start with our first, and I'm not going to, yes, they're authors, but they're parents. So we're going to call them what they are today. In this book, they're parents. So we are going to start with our first one, and we're going to go in order of the book. So I'm going to bring up Alicia. Good morning. Good morning.
Hello. Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. And I am going to hand it over to Trunnis if you would like to run this. And I am going to put up your beautiful daughter. Helping it. Perfect. It worked.
First of all, I will say that on the day that our daughter passed away, her and I were standing side by side. Obviously, Alicia is Kayla's mother. I thought that it was important. My story of the passing of Kayla is in 2 different books, but I wanted her mother to have an opportunity to share her experience as well. And I appreciate her. I know how difficult, first of all, for all of the parents to share this, but I absolutely know because this journey, this 9.5, almost 10-year journey, I have actually gone on and seen her go through her stages of grief as well. So for her sharing this is great. One thing, we talk about Kayla every year. We get together on the 19th and go to the whole family, the kids and brothers and sisters. We all go to our daughter's gravesite. That's the only time we go. We don't go to cry. I don't ever see a tear. We go to celebrate and laugh. And one thing that Kayla has done is she has brought us, she continues to, through her son, bring us a lot of joy. And she brings us tons of joy. And so what I wanted Alicia to do is, if you don't mind, I mean, I have tons of stories about her. I mean, I know that she was the typical first daughter, but if you don't mind sharing your experience.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to everyone and to for this opportunity, and thank you, Trunnis, for giving me this opportunity. So it's been a hard 9 years. Kayla was, oh my gosh. I'm laughing because that's what she did most. She was just a happy, bubbly child. If I close my eyes long enough, I can hear her laughing. I'll never forget her laugh. She was just a great kid, mother, very, I don't know. She was just a happy child. She was always there if you needed her. She was kind of a mama bear to her siblings. Just very, stand up for anybody. She's just a great person, great daughter. I miss her so much. But she brought a lot of joy and happiness. She was the spunky kid that kind of held us all together. Like, she was, yeah, very opinionated. She didn't hold back. So, but yeah, she was just a great kid. I don't know. It's just so much. The emotions. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
So, yeah. But I'm just glad to be a part of this. And it's hard as a parent. People say things to you, to try to make you feel better. It's appreciated, but it's like you just don't understand, just don't get it. But it's a process. People want to say, it gets easier. It does not. you just learn to find ways to deal with it. It's your new normal. But it hurts every day, just like it was, that day that it all happened. So, yeah, it just never gets easier. But I hope that people can learn from this book, that we can help somebody, and that they're not alone. I remember feeling I'm all alone. Nobody knows. Nobody understands. Like I'm just the only one that's ever, lost a child. It's kind of like, me being selfish in a way. But then I had to learn to realize, like, you're not the only one. There's a lot of people out here hurting and grieving, and we should never, ever. Nobody should ever have to bury their child, ever. It's the most. I don't even have words. I don't have words to explain that day that basically seeing her for the last time. So that was, yeah. So.
What was something, or what is something that helps even a little bit? I know, and no, I cannot relate. And like I said, I'm blessed that I can't relate. I cannot imagine, and I don't ever want to try to imagine. But what is something that you either came across or used, or I know you shared a support place, but what is something that does help?
I would say one of the things that does help for me is talking about her. Sharing my story that I've shared over the last nine and a half years. And it's, people will freeze up like, oh, and it's like, no, it's okay. Because I feel better after, because I want her to be remembered, and even if they didn't know her, and just keep her name alive. That's probably been like one of the biggest things for me. Although it was hard to do the chapter and talk about it there, but with people, I don't know, it seems easier to talk about it, just to get it off my chest, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then support groups, I've been to those, therapy. I think that's very important, because you can't process this on your own. You don't know where to start. You're lost. Like, what do I do now? But yeah, that's helped me along the way, talking to, a therapist and things like that. Yeah, those are probably the things that helped me the most.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. Trunnis, anything you would like to say or ask?
No, other than the fact that, yeah, you're bringing up, when you talk about Kayla, you definitely bring up some, some instances. I mean, she was very funny. And one thing she did say, she protects, she was a protector. And unfortunately, one of the reasons why she is not here today is because she was protecting. That's the way it goes. But one funny story I will share about my daughter. She was protecting her sister, and there was a boy in the neighborhood that was picking on her sister. It's now my oldest living daughter, and so I didn't know this. I was in the house, and apparently my two daughters run in the house, Kayla being one of them. They run in the house and they just run upstairs. I was living in a townhome at the time, and just like slam their door. And then Kayla comes downstairs and says, "Dad, I was only doing this." And I was like, "What were you only doing?" And so about maybe, 10 minutes later, I get a knock on the door, and it's some kid's mother, and said, "Your daughter picked my son up and threw him in the bushes."
Poor Kayla.
So I called her down. I said, why did you throw this kid in the bushes? And she goes, because she was picking on my sister. And I was like, all right, that's not a problem. But I will never forget that moment. I mean, they stormed in that house. They ran in and like they thought they were in trouble, but they didn't get in trouble. I laughed at the whole thing because the kid that was picking on Kayla was much bigger, and I was pretty surprised that she could do something like that. But I did. I had to laugh, and so did she after it was all over. But she really thought she was in trouble, but she wasn't.
Oh, wow. Dr. Heather, any questions or anything you want to say?
Just, I think, Alicia, you made such a good point. People want to say things that are helpful, and those platitudes can feel really minimizing or dismissive at times.
Yes.
And so sometimes just saying like, that is really hard. I'm so sorry. Tell me about Kayla. What was something you miss about her? I think remembering to say their name and like share stories, it makes us feel like we're less alone in carrying their memory. And that other people are holding that too. So I just thank you for sharing about Kayla.
No, thank you.
Thank you so much, Alicia, for sharing your story about Kayla and how everything that happened, how you dealt with it in the book. And I encourage everybody, like I said, to get the book and hear your story. But thank you for allowing us to share that story with the world. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, honey. All right, and I just covered up. I should have took the brand away. I can still see you, Heather. I promise.
It's okay. It's a great picture.
It is a great picture. All right. I was on the wrong thing. There you are. Hello. Okay. Next up, I'm going to bring up Scott and Teresa. This one is about Daniel. And so this is what I came up with. And I hope Scott liked this picture. This is a different story. So, Scott, tell us a little bit about I'm trying to remember how long Daniel was even here for, because he was a little bitty. So just tell us a little bit.
It was back in 1983, and Daniel came a little bit early, and he was here only 2 days.
Wow.
And the first day in the hospital, of course, he was all wired up. What?
Sorry.
The first day he was all wired up, with tubes and everything.
Yeah.
And he was only a little bit less than 2 pounds. And first day I had a little bit of hope. And but as time progressed into the second day, the things started going, not so well. And so then the hope was dashed, and I sat there and held him while he passed away.
Aww. Yeah, so you have a lot of, I believe it was, I don't remember, it was Trunnis talking about all those missed moments. And you've had a long time to, as other people would say, this is not my words, get over it. And there's people that would look at that situation and say, oh, he was only here for 2 days. And me, I would probably kick them. But you can hear in your voice how raw it still is. That moment, I'm sure you still see that moment. And it doesn't matter if they were here for 2 seconds. It was your kiddo. Yeah. And I told all the parents, I said, I don't care how old your kid is, they're your kiddo. And I tell my kids that. My kids are older, and I'm like, yeah, no, you're gonna be my kiddo, no matter how old you are. And
well, it's like Trunnis was talking about. You, as a parent, you want to watch your child grow up and see all the things. Well, I had nothing.
Yeah. And
at the time, I didn't even have God to help me. So there I was, on my own, and pretty much drawn into myself and shut out most of the world for a long time, many months, and was not a healthy situation, and both mentally and physically. And so,
yeah, I'm sure. And I have a friend who lost a child the same way and has not coped with it well, and it's not a good situation, and is still and has other children, and as a friend you want to say something, but it's her coping, and it's you just watch, and there's not a whole lot you can do. But I appreciate you adding your story to this book, because it's important that people, like, you're not alone. This happens. This happens probably daily across the world. And, as you said, you didn't have God at that point. And I know you're a strong Christian man now. What eventually, got you where you were dealing with it a little bit better, making it through the day a little bit better?
Well, I don't know. I'm trying to shut it out,
Yeah.
Then once I started following Jesus, it started getting a little easier and to cope with. And it's just, it's still there. I mean,
yeah. And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The one thing as being, and then I'm not trying to make this all about God. I know some people get cringy, but you have that. You do have that. You get to see him one day, and he'll be running up to you, and that will be an amazing moment for you. Long ways down the road, because we love you, Scotty. But
whenever it happens, who knows? You never know.
But yeah, I mean, and then we'll talk here in a little bit, or you know what? While we have you guys up here, we'll just keep going. We'll skip through them. So you went from Daniel, and then that was, what year was that?
1983.
Wow. And then years later.
Yeah, we met. Yes. When I met Scott, he still had Daniel's picture. He had one picture, but it was, we couldn't locate it for this. And he was, it was a tough picture because he was, all wired up, like he said. And he would look at it every night. And, I hadn't lost a child at that point, but I said, honey, put it away. Just put it away, so you're not looking at it every night, and you can let it heal, and I honestly think it helped a little bit, just not having Daniel's picture right there for a little while in plain sight. I would see him look at it and see the sadness in his face every night, and it hurt me to see him hurt. But I don't know, really, honest and truly now, if that I feel the same because of Ethan. Yes.
Because of Ethan.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's while we have you up here, just talk about Ethan. So you have an older son. You have Ethan. This was a lot more. I mean, it was recent. I feel like, to me, like it was recent, but it was 13 years ago.
Yeah.
Which it just is crazy to me. When Trunnis told me about this book, I immediately asked him if he had all of his authors, and I said, if not, I have somebody for you. Teresa, I knew Ethan. I know you well, and I just had to have you share your story in this book. Tell me, tell me a story about Ethan. I know he was a gamer. I know the gaming community was such a huge support for y'all. So many stories that I heard about that just from my kids. But tell us a little bit about Ethan and who he was.
Well, he was pretty crazy. he had such a heart that he didn't like to see anybody sad. So even with us, you know, when we would have a bad day, and he knew just what to say, you know, he'd be like, you know, he knew that if I went to movies that I would relax and not be stressed out. And he's like, Mom, I think it's movie time, you know? But he would do that. He did it for everybody at school. He did it all the time, but I had to laugh because he was so excited about moving to Tulsa, because he begged his dad and I, because there really was nothing left in Keokuk. It had got so, you know, economically challenged. And so anyway, poor Scott was working overtime at work. And so me and Casey and Ethan came to Tulsa to look for houses. And so I'm like trying to snap pictures of the houses as we're looking at them, so I can, you know, send them to Scott. And he kept running into the pictures and posing and making faces and doing a sexy pose. And so every picture I was trying to send to Scott, he's running into the middle of it and posing. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, come on, you know. And I just to be humorous, he was just that way. He wanted to make it, you know, it laugh. He wanted to make everything fun. He was that way. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
No, go ahead.
Okay.
I mean, I'll have something to say in a little bit. Yeah.
But you know, God was so good to us, because, you know, a lot of times boys go through those awkward teenage years, and Ethan never did that. There was never a time when he, you know, didn't want anything to do with us. Now, I laughed because every night he would come down and give me a kiss on the cheek and tell me good night and I love you, you know, or else I would go up to his room and do that. And he got to about maybe 13 or somewhere in there, 12, 13. And he came up to give me a kiss, and you could tell it was just getting a little bit awkward. And all of a sudden he slurped the whole side of my face, just licked the whole side of my face. And that first impulse is like, ugh, you know, yeah. But, you know, I had to make a choice right then, you know. It is still contact. It was still came with, I love you, Mom.
Yeah.
Or I could react like a normal adult does and say, yeah, don't ever do that again. And I didn't stop him. And I thank God for that, because we went through that several times where he would come down and just slurp my face at night, and I got ready for it. And you know, you look at it and you think, that's so gross. But that was his love at that point, you know, and it's so important. Kids are going to go through those crazy stages. We can either bend with them and accept the way they love us, or push them away in that instant where they really aren't quite sure what they need to do. And so at that point, that was his love. And he would laugh, you know, it made him laugh. But he didn't do it every time. He would kiss me, and then sometimes slurp me after that, or he would slurp me and then sometimes kiss me afterwards. But it only went on for a very short time. You know, I think he was testing the waters. And then, but I remember when he was about 19 and he came up to me and kissed me goodnight, and then all of a sudden just slurp. And he said, I couldn't resist, Mom, you know. And I'm just like, it was a memory. It was okay. I was all right with it. Of course I had to go, oh gosh, that's gross, you know. But still hug him and say, I love you, you know. So it was just the kind of person, and those, but he would invite us to hang out with his college friends. When he went through college, he, you know, grabbed us and asked me to run through the corn maze with him. You know, he called me, and I drove an hour to meet him and his college friends to run through a corn maze with him, you know, and he was my fishing buddy. And we would, if he could make honor roll, take that time to do that fishing trip. But it's not like he went clear over to the next, you know, side of the river. We sat side by side, and those, you know, wasn't always conversation, but it was always sitting there and talking some and fishing some and side by side for a week, you know, sun up to sundown we fished, and it was just having that time with him that God gave us, that specialness of that relationship without those days when he didn't want anything to do with us.
That's
pretty.
I have boys. I understand the awkward days, and
Yes.
Trunnis, anything you want to ask?
No, not want to ask, but I just want to say one thing. This book, the reason why I wanted to even get this book out there is to help families. And one thing that Scott and Teresa have done is the moment I told them this is what I wanted to do, they actually they gave ideas to take this to the next level to help other individuals. And we are going out right now, and with this book, we're going to use this as a vehicle to really help people. And it's not just reading the stories; it's the steps after, it's the motion after that we're going to do as a group. To help people. This is a very, very hard time to navigate. And going to even Dr. Taylor, one reason why I wanted Dr. Taylor in this book is because when I talked to her, she was not trying to solve a problem. She knew that this is going to be an issue from now until my last breath. And she approaches this grief as a navigation process. And the way that Teresa and Scott, they treat it as a navigation process, and they're there. You could tell by their warmth and their love for community and their love for people that they want to help people going through this situation. And for them to go through it not once but twice in different situations, it's great that you have someone there because they understand this process.
Yeah.
I was going to add one thing with that, and it's the fact that not everyone goes through the trials, the actual trials of losing their child, and that in itself was a whole nother thing, which we didn't talk a lot about in the book. But
yeah,
I really want to tell people, if you're getting ready to go in the trials and you need somebody to talk to, yes, please reach out to us, because the emotion that you carry through the trials and preparation for the trials are difficult. And there's so things that we weren't told until the minute we got ready to walk into the courtroom, of what we could do and couldn't do. And so, yes, we've really, and I'm agreeing with the fact that talking about our child is amazing, and being able to share. We've been blessed to be able to share a few times and speak, and that is a blessing that way. But we're here. If anybody needs us, we're here.
I love that.
I wanted just to briefly mention, Trunnis earlier talked about the student reaching out to him. Was it a classmate or?
Yes.
Yes.
And we had that actually happen to us. One of the class reunions, Ethan's, after he was gone, that reached out to us and actually had us come to the class reunion on behalf of Ethan, and spend a whole evening with his classmates
who loved on us.
And that was special. And the other thing that I remember that helped me during after Ethan was murdered is I found a song by David Crowder, and I had 10-hour days in the welding shop where I worked at, and I found myself putting on the song "Come As You Are," where the specific line in there talked about earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. And so I found myself playing that song over and I'm talking 10 hours, and allowing that message to continue to pound into my head, that that earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. And so that's, you talked about music earlier, how that might help. That was one song that I used and helped get through a certain time period there.
Yeah. Dr. Heather, anything you would like to add?
Well, Scott, I wanted to say I appreciated your vulnerability and sharing about Daniel, and you know, in the 80s, I mean, still even today, we live in a very grief phobic, grief illiterate society. And people are uncomfortable with these out of order losses. And so I just admire that you went at your pace and you let your grief be what it needed to be. And that's the thing, it never goes away. You're still carrying him with you. It just gets different. And you've learned how to carry it in different ways. And so I just appreciated you sharing that. And yeah. And then with Ethan, I loved the invitation to the reunion. I think that's so special when, again, it's other people remembering our person and inviting us into story and memory. And I think that's so beautiful. So thank you both for sharing your stories.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you both. I appreciate you, and you know I love you.
Thank you.
Back to you.
Thanks for the opportunity to share.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. All right. I gotta make sure I move that before I move people.
It's okay. I kind of like it.
Yeah. You like being covered up. So our next person in the book is actually Joshua Connor Chastain. I'm gonna put his picture over your face right now. Because I want his face on, and his mama has not shown up. If she shows up, we'll go back to her. But I want to show Joshua in our stream. But you'll have to learn more about him. Like I said, if Constance joins us, we'll pop her up. But right now, I'm going to bring up Erin and her map.
Good morning.
Good morning, honey. So tell us about Max.
Well, first of all, look at that beautiful face and that beautiful smile.
Yes.
So we lost our Max in 2020, June of 2020, to suicide after his long battle with mental and physical illness. And it's been the most devastating experience of our lives. And whenever I say that phrase, it just sounds like such a massive understatement. But he was, to this day, the most interesting person I've ever met. He was a funny, quirky, intelligent, sensitive little guy. And he became just a funny, intelligent, very tender-hearted big guy too. So I wanted to share a story, and I could sit here and tell stories all day, frankly. And I really thought about one that I could share, because there's a couple in the book. But this is one that's not in the book, so I wanted to share it. So he was a very deep thinker from a young age. And so when he was 3 years old, I was pregnant with his little brother, Sam. And I was making dinner. He was sitting in the kitchen on the floor playing, and I was making dinner. We were waiting for my husband to have dinner. And Max said to me, "Mommy, how did the baby get in your belly?" And I said, "Well, honey, mommies have eggs and daddies have seeds. And when the eggs and the seeds come together, it forms a baby." And he thought for a minute. And then he looked at me and he said, "How about when my dad gets home, you show me how?" And that is such a Max story, because he was, like I said, a deep thinker. And I've told that story more times than I can count, because I really think that it illustrates the kind of kid he was, the kind of person he was. You know, as he got older, he was very creative. He was in a band in high school. He played the drums. He taught himself to play banjo. He did stand-up comedy, wrote his own material, obviously. He was just an artist. He wrote short stories and poetry. He sketched. And so we're just so grateful that we had him for 25 years and that my husband and I were chosen to be his parents. Because as I said, he is just a special, interesting guy. And earlier you asked us to share what we've done to kind of cope with our loss, because it's devastating. And the deep, dark grief that I felt after losing Max, I was completely unprepared for. You know, he struggled for 8 years, and he was in and out of the hospital for suicide ideation. So we always knew that the outcome that we had could happen. But it still completely pulled the rug out from under us. And so I went into a depression that summer after he And at the suggestion of my therapist, I started to journal. And just journaling about my feelings, just these raw, kind of swirling thoughts and emotions. And it was very cathartic to get those out on paper. And then I started to post some of those journal entries on social media because I was kind of tired of running into people in the grocery store and having them look at me with a stricken look and say, "How are you?" And so I put these journal entries out on social media, and I got tremendous response, tremendously positive response. I think because it was in the middle of COVID, it was a moment in time where people were just really hungry for authenticity, and so it was that was kind of what allowed me to process my grief in those early days, process those swirling thoughts and emotions that I couldn't sometimes put words to. And ultimately, what happened was those journal entries evolved into a book because I think somebody threw that idea out on social media and said, "You should write a book." And I thought, okay, maybe I will. And so I found a graphic designer and we put together a resource that would have been helpful for me. And that was, what the summer that he died, I read everything I could get my hands on. And some things were helpful, many were not. But a book about child loss is a very heavy book. And I wanted to balance the heavy content with beauty. And that might sound odd, but I just wanted it to be accessible. I wanted it to be digestible for parents who have lost a child. And so the journal entries allows people to get these like little nuggets, these little bites. And then it's balanced with beautiful illustrations of a bird because I kept seeing the same bird in the days and weeks following Max's death. That's really common to see a sign after you lose a loved one. And mine was a bird. And so my graphic designer did these beautiful illustrations. They appear in pieces and parts throughout the book. She also took our family photos, like this beautiful one that you see in the center of the screen. And she lays them out in sort of like scrapbook pages. So, I really feel like I have produced a resource that is helpful to parents that are grieving. It's helpful to people who are working alongside those that are grieving. Because to everybody's point, nobody knows what to say. And a lot of times people say something that is not helpful and sometimes hurtful. So I think that it's that. And then I've also heard from therapists and other clinicians that it helps them understand the grieving process of the parent. So it was definitely a labor of love. And I was so honored to be asked to participate in this project because it just gets my Max out in front of more people. And my purpose now is to remember him, talk about him, help others get to know him, and then come alongside other parents that are grieving and just help them understand that they can live after the death of their child. It's hard. It's a road that we will travel the rest of our lives. That grief never goes away, but it is possible to grieve them fully and also live fully ourselves. So that's really my mission and my goal. So thank you for allowing me to be part of this really important book and part of this event today.
Yeah, and that's the one thing that all of the parents that are involved in this book, I know their desire is to help other parents that have to go through this and be part of that support system. And I can see that from each and every one of you. So yes, thank you. Trunnis, anything you'd like to say?
One thing about Aaron is, we were talking, you have Alicia, you have myself, you have the Nichols. We were talking about how to go through the process after the fact. One thing about Aaron is not only is she trying to help parents grieve through a process, she's also working diligently through different organizations to prevent her situation from happening in the future. And she has made I will say this because I was in the military, she has really started an assault on trying to make sure that parents are, number one, aware and they're listening to certain words and phrases and things. They're being very proactive. They're being they're almost being intrusive and I'm saying that in a good way. I'm not saying that in a bad way. They're being intrusive and making sure that they are really hands-on in preventing situations as Erin experienced with her son to happen to them. And that is the greatest act of love, is to, not only, she has, I mean, her loss is extremely recent. And for her to, even in her grief, to go out and try to help others in the way she's doing it's admirable. It is extremely admirable.
Thank you, Trunnis. I appreciate that.
Dr. Heather?
Well, I actually got to work with Erin on another project, and it's just been such an honor to get to learn about Max. And I've read your journal, and it's such a beautiful book, the illustrations and the story. And I think you captured it really beautifully. Like, it's this both and, like, you can grieve and live, and it's learning how to find that balance between those two spaces. You go to the depths of your grief, and then you have to learn how to come up for air and do those life-giving things. And so it's that oscillation between life-giving work and grief work. And Erin, I think you model that so beautifully, and you honor Max in doing that too. I think you're amazing.
Right back at you. Thank you. I appreciate your kind words, Heather.
Thank you so much, Erin, for sharing your story and just being that light in the mess, and in continuing to honor Max with what you're trying to help others with. I love that. And I have somebody I want to connect you with as well. So I will try my best to remember to do that. But if I don't, remind me, okay?
I will. All
right.
Thanks,
Thank
Nichol.
you so much, Erin.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
I did it on purpose that time. All right. Next up, we have Carrie. My mouse is being dumb. And Jacob. There we go. There's Jacob. So tell us, Carrie, about Jacob.
Okay. Well, you asked for a funny story. So Jacob liked to do little funny things similar to Ethan. He would do little chicken noises if I was working in the kitchen and a little bit stressed because I couldn't get everything done at the same time. He'd start making chicken noises, make me laugh, and just forget that, oh gosh, it's okay if it's 5 minutes off, He would do a penguin dance, which was his signature dance, make people laugh. He would bring people together. His friends would tell me that, we would go out as a group, but we knew that Jacob was there, and so we would have fun. We would all do something fun together. One Christmas, I'll tell you, with my husband's side of the family, we wanted to do something that would be fun all together. It's a pretty big family. So Jacob had the idea of getting all those adult onesies. So everybody would buy an adult onesie. Instead of giving gifts to each other, we would just give these onesies to each other. And so there were things like bears and walruses and different little characters and giraffes. And we went ice skating as a whole family. So we were in Yosemite National Park, and they had this little ice skating rink, and we took up the whole rink coming down in a big line, and people all around just had the best time looking at us, and we had so much fun laughing. And that was Jacob. Jacob was a happy boy, just like Ethan.
Yeah.
Reminded me a lot of that story.
Aww, I love that. Yeah, I can just picture that. My daughter loves those things and has several. And I can just imagine y'all on ice skate. No, that's awesome. I love that. What is something that helped your journey?
Well, I guess a few months after Jacob died, my daughter and I, we sat together and we asked each other, what's been helpful going through this? What have you found helpful? What's been hurtful? So we took a real heart-to-heart time, couple hours talking about that. And we found that we really loved it when people would come and offer condolences, but it was lacking. And we know that they didn't know what to say, and we didn't know how to respond, or how do you say, well, whatever you say is not going to make me feel better, because they want to make you feel better. And then people would give us gifts like chocolates or cookies or flowers that would die in a few days. We said, well, we like that. We love that people thought of us, but what is it that really helped us? And so for her and I, we started journaling. That was one thing that really helped us. My daughter had a lot of headaches, so doing a ice pack or a heating pad on her head really helped. Drinking tea was helpful for her too. For his celebration of life, a girlfriend brought all these share a memory cards that everybody at the celebration of life could write a memory, and then we could keep that. So that was very helpful. And lighting candles and his picture frame. So we ended up putting together a company called Grief Box and put those items in a box that people could then give to friends that had lost a loved one, and just say, gosh, I don't know what to say, but I hope that these things that these other people found helpful would be helpful for you. So that was very nice. And just hearing other people's stories, like I'm hearing today, these stories of these parents and their loss, is I love hearing those stories. I know that I'm not alone, because they're feeling that grief also. And then that way they can give me a little bit of their burden. And when I share, I give a little bit of my burden. So we think of each other. Now I have all of your stories in my mind, in my repertoire, and I can share those stories as well.
Yes. Yes. And I looked up Grief Box. And as somebody that's been the person that's going, what can I do? I wish I would have known about Grief Box earlier. I absolutely love that concept. I did something like that for a friend of mine who lost her son. And my classmates, we got together and sent her a blanket. And then her son liked, he always picked up heart rocks. So we made her, I got a stone that's a heart and put his favorite quote on it. And that's what we sent. Something that lasts. Like you said, I will not send somebody flowers when there's death involved, because it's like, the flowers die. Send them something that is keepable, something that's going to last, something that's going to remind them of something, or something, something that their child was known for, or something that they can keep in there. But I love the box idea, and you make it so simple, because you can just go to your website or the app and say, send this person this. I mean, it takes a whole lot of takes thought out of it when you don't know what to do.
Yes.
And and you're honoring Jacob through that. And I think it's a lasting thing that you're doing that's honoring him. So I commend both of you for doing that and just putting that heart into that project. Trunnis, anything you'd like to add?
No, I will say that the concept of Grief Box is a great concept.
Yes.
One thing that I talked to your daughter a couple of times, and one thing that gets me about your situation is, your son was such he was a great guy. He was a really good good guy. And, and then now I hear the stories that you're sharing now about him and about the ice skating and things like that. And every family, has someone like that. And you were blessed to have him in that capacity. And it's just his acts of caring and loving his family are just impeccable, especially at that age. I was his age at one time, and trying to keep the family together when I was growing up was not one of my duties at all. And just to listen to that, it's admirable.
Well, thank you.
Dr. Heather?
I loved hearing the onesie ice skating story so much. Oh, what a character, and what a unifier. And Grief Box, that's a brilliant idea. It captures that need for those tangibles, those objects, those things to help us feel anchored and connected. And I'm just thinking like a rock or a stone, it's something you can stick in your pocket and have as that reminder. I use those sometimes in grief therapy groups, is you have that transition object. And so I think then you can carry it with you as that reminder of like people that I've connected with, stories that I've heard, work that I've done, and it can be that touchstone to help you stay anchored. And I think there's so much power in those tangibles and in the ritual that you're giving by creating those grief boxes. What an amazing legacy for Jacob. I just think that's so beautiful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie, for sharing your story in this book and adding to it, and for everything that you're doing to remember your boy. Thank you. Okay, next up, I'm going to bring up Oscar and this beautiful little soul, if I can find him. There he is. Little Ollie. Tell us about Oliver. Ollie.
Well, good morning, everyone. First off, I just want to express a whole ton of gratitude to you, Trunnis, obviously, for giving me the opportunity and our family the opportunity to obviously share Ollie's story and our story. Nichol, for all the work that you've done. It's been absolutely amazing to watch, so bravo to all of you. And, I'll start off by saying that Ollie was 2 years old when he passed away. It was the first day of COVID. So I express some of that story in the book, which, as you can imagine, was quite a precarious time to be in a hospital when no one could visit and, the whole world was on shutdown. But, aside from that, as a little 2-year-old, and he's a replica of his mom, you can say like that, is that your son? And at 2 years old, I suppose all you can really bring to the world is joy and love. Because as you know, as we go through life, there's different emotions and different things that happen to us. And, from the end, and I'll come back, his life was pure joy. It was pure love. And not only did he express that and give that to us and our family, but, we've been able to really move forward in this journey of ours with a lot of peace after, of course, going through our own trials, but moving forward with a lot of peace and a lot of service, because we know that in his brief life, like I said, not only did he give so much love and joy, but he only experienced love and joy. And so that gives us a lot of peace in our hearts. And in terms of a really cool story, I do talk about this a little bit in the chapter, but everyone used to joke, especially the nannies at his daycare, that my wife and I, Rebecca, would compete to be the first ones inside of the door, so that when we walked outside during playtime, we would be the first one that he'd see, and he'd be, let go of his little cart that he loved to push, as little kids have those carts, and he'd let go of the cart and he would scream, mama or papa, whoever he saw first, and sprint over, and you embrace. And I still think about that all the time. And I do have a tattoo of him. This is essentially me walking with him to school. And as a father, when he became or turned 2 years old, or when he was really starting to grow up, the first year or two, year and a half, because he was predominantly breastfed, it's all mom. He's heavily reliant on mom. And so we kind of, serve in the background. But the older he got, the more he was able to play and communicate, the more my role really started to shine through. And, I will say this, I had a hard time loving myself growing up. And so when my son was born, when Ollie came into this life, he not only taught me how to receive love for the first time, but I think it was also the first time in my life that I was able to truly express unconditional love. And I will forever thank him for providing me that.
Oh, that is awesome. Yeah, the biddies are, I call them biddies. I don't know why. But yeah, pure joy. Yeah. And that's what they're all about. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day about how genuinely they're genuinely honest. They know nothing, but I mean, that's what their lives when they're that size should be. Complete joy. And just joy, kindness. They don't know that's how we come into this world. Joy, expectation that the world is ours. That's how we come in. Right? And as we grow up, somehow we lose that, and we lose so many, we forget how to dream. We forget all of that. But yeah, I have a grandson that is Ollie's age. And so reading your chapter was not easy for me. And so, yeah, that age is just, there's so much wonder. There's so much, yeah. So what a precious, he's just adorable anyway. But
thank you.
What is something, what is something that helped you in your journey?
Yeah. So I took a bit of a unique path of healing. I took a very Goggins approach to my healing, and it was all really about I'll say this, I digress for a second. Men have a tendency, and you could see that in Scott and Trunnis, you've expressed your experience as well, but men have a tendency to suffer in silence.
Yes.
And oftentimes that leads down a dark path if we don't confront that and if we don't heal that pain or those wounds. And that often leads to addictions and vices, and it not only impacts us as men and human beings, but it affects our relationships, and it takes a lot of work to be able to really overcome that and move into a direction of service and being able to heal. Men have a harder time, we have a tough time healing. So my approach was very much, I'm going to just really put myself under a lot of tension, a lot of stress, marathons, really difficult boot camps. But I did all that with the intention and sort of this hope, I suppose, and understanding that if I'm able to break myself down in a way, then hopefully, ideally, I'm able to rebuild myself back up. And in some of the most difficult situations, almost like civilian boot camp, like Hell Week in the Navy SEALs, I did some of that type of training for civilians, and it was really, these 3 or 4 day situations where it's you either pass or you're ringing the bell and you're quitting. And I remember so, very vividly, specifically one night I'm crawling through dirt and rock, and we're carrying these hammers. It's probably like 3 a.m. We've been awake for 24 hours without sleep, and it's, like I said, it's pouring rain. I'm crawling through this dirt field, and I start kind of just jackhammering from the cold. And in that moment, I remember a mentor said to me, in those moments where you want to quit, and this is really, I think, relevant for wanting to quit in life when you go through something so difficult, it was a microcosm of me wanting to potentially quit. And in that moment, being able to not only think of Oliver and what it meant to him, and for me to persevere through this for him, but also to persevere and be an example for my family and everybody who supported us during that time. So that was really my path. It was a bit different, but this is gonna maybe raise some eyebrows, but my son's life and his passing was the most difficult and probably one of the worst things obviously has ever happened to us. But it also was one of the best things that maybe ever happened to me on a personal level, because it really forced me to confront areas of my life that maybe I wasn't showing up in the best way possible. and allowed me to step into probably a more, stronger, more higher endurance, probably kinder, more loving, more patient man. And that really ultimately allowed me to step into a greater version of me as a human being, but also be a better husband, a better brother, a better son, a better friend. And it has allowed us now to, I think, move forward, like I said before, in a very powerful way. And, Trunnis, I think you said this earlier, we don't cry anymore, but we celebrate. And, doing this and being a part of this with all of you and all the other parents, it's been a great honor.
Trunnis?
Yeah, I will say that your ordeal is vastly different than anyone else.
Yeah.
You had to go through a lot, even after the fact. Parts of your grief was actually added. You had additional grief and stress after the fact that you had to deal with. One thing I do admire about you is the fact that you went deep into the valley, but you are definitely you're going back to that mountaintop. And one thing you did say, it's not eye raising. It's not eye raising at all. I look at myself now, and because of Kayla and because of what she has done, I think that I'm a better person today. If I go back to June 15th, I'm a different person. I mean, June 18th. If I go back to June 18th, 2015, I am an absolutely different person than I am now. And it went through that process. And I owe a lot of this to Kayla, a lot of it. There's things that I do now in my life that is just, I would, it's unheard of. I would never have done this before. And I think that I think I am, I don't want to say I'm a better person, but I am more tolerant. I am better to cope. I do know what is absolutely important to me, and I know that I am more than willing to give up what is important to others, but really, in the scheme of things, is not important at all. And I owe that all to Kayla and Oscar. That was a great way that you put it.
Spot on. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Heather?
Yeah, I just really admire your tenacity to not shy away from feeling the feelings, and that you were putting those feelings into shifting the path that you were on, and to be in a better space to support yourself and your family. I think that's incredibly admirable and really difficult to do. And I haven't gotten to read your specific chapter yet, but from what Trunnis was alluding to, it sounds like there was a lot of secondary loss and those ripples, and it's you can't predict how those grief bursts are going to show up and where they're going to show up. And so to have something to put energy and focus into, like, endurance events and training for things, like, I think that can be a really helpful outlet, a really healthy coping strategy. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
I did read your chapter.
I appreciate that. And I think the last thing I'll just add to everything is, for anyone who's listening to this that can relate to this type of story, and again, the other fathers spoke about this, you don't only grieve what was, you grieve what you thought was going to be. And I think that was also one of the really difficult things for me. Like I said at the beginning, we were really moving into now, like, building that relationship together, and I felt very involved in taking him to school. And it was an unexpected occurrence of the grief, or a learning of the grief. Was I thought it was just about grieving the loss, and then as I moved through that, I started to realize, man, I'm really grieving as well everything I thought was going to happen. The conversations, the sports games, the matches, the relationships, the girl, all those things that I had kind of was really hoping and expecting to have, because I wanted to be a great father and a very present father. So that's a really big thing. It's not always just the grieving itself. It's everything you thought was going to happen as well. And I do talk a little bit about that in the chapter as well.
Yeah, Oscar, your vulnerability in the chapter is amazing, and I say, everybody grieves differently, and nobody there's not a cookie cutter way to grieve. And the fact that you went a completely different path is completely fine. But you did you, and you came out a different person from that, and you've learned. And I mean, that's the one thing. If the one thing that you learn the most when you lose anybody is to take in those moments a little better, to be present, to be, that's the one thing I've learned over the last few years of the people that I've lost in my life, is that you just have to be present in the moment. So you have those things to look back on, and the little precious moments that you had with Oliver that you look back on in the book are just so precious and sweet. And I know everybody's going to be blessed by your story and your little kiddo. So thank you so much for adding your story to the book. And I can't wait to hear more from you as well.
Yeah, thank you. It was a privilege.
Thank
Thanks.
you, Oscar. All right. We'll leave him here because he's so cute. No, I will be very honest. That story was the hardest for me to put in the book because of having a grandson his age. It was like, I don't want to do this one. Okay, our last parent that is with us is Miss Christy. And let me find Michael. Hello, beautiful. Tell us about Michael.
Thank you. First, let me just say thank you to all of you for what you've done to bring this group together and put this book together. I think, a parent that has lost a child, your greatest desire and hope is that your child is remembered and never forgotten. And you've given us this additional opportunity in a space that we all really want to help someone else who will find themselves, in a similar place, perhaps. So my heartfelt thanks to all of you. Our Michael was just this joyful young man. He's the youngest of 3 boys in our family. We had the gift of having Michael with us here for 16 years and 8 months. He quickly, even as a baby, kind of became the glue to our family. As I listened today about Ethan, parts of Ethan and parts of Jacob, it made me, feel that's Michael, the same, the funny, always wanting to make your family laugh. And then the most affectionate, always offering so much love. One thing that I want to share is, or a funny story I can add, is Michael was just filled with passion. So whatever it was he was involved in, he was all in. There wasn't any small piece. It was all of Michael. A good example of that would be to share when he was just 2. He went through, and so our family went through this Disney phase and Mickey Mouse phase. And Michael, of course, was Mickey. I became Minnie. And he had names for his brothers and his dad. And we were no longer who we were. And if you stepped out of that, he reminded you. So when he'd wake up in the morning, he was still in a crib. And he'd call me to, let me know he was awake. And I'd hear, Minnie, I awake. I'd say, okay, Michael, I'll be there soon. No, Minnie, Mickey. I'm like, okay, Mickey, Minnie will be there soon. And in that phase, we were sitting in the Bible school production after a week of his brothers, who were young at that time too. He was 2, giving the parents and all the families were there doing their final production and show and singing all their songs for their families. And Michael is standing on the pew next to me, and I'm trying to get him to sit down. He's just, totally wrapped up to it. And all of a sudden, he screams out, Minnie, there's Goofy. He's picking out one of his brothers from the, like, Michael, sit down. Oh, I'm not Michael, I'm Mickey. So we lived that, and that great passion, kind of went into all parts of his life. And as he grew up, and he became really passionate about sports. And that's not hard to believe in our family because we're really a sports family. But Michael had this just, white hot passion for certain teams, and he got completely checked into his teams. Trunnis, we share the Buffalo Bills connection on this. My husband is from Buffalo, so consequently we all became Buffalo Bills fans. And one of the days I remember being a day that was filled with so much joy, and I call it a Michael day, was his brothers had both gone off to college, and we were trying to find ways to, cushion that adjustment of being an only child. And I have to say that Michael kind of stepped into that role pretty quickly when he realized all the attention that he would get, the good attention at least. But there was a day when the Bills were playing football and the Chicago Cubs, our baseball team, had a game that night. It was a Sunday. So the three of us, we were living in the suburban area of Chicago at that time. We traveled to the city and had an all Michael sports day. So we traveled down wearing our Bills gear and went to Wrigleyville and, went to this outdoor establishment and watched the game and had lunch. And then we went shopping and got some more of, not that we needed it, but more Cubs gear. Did a quick Superman change and off to the Cubs game that night. And just the joy in Michael's face will be written on my heart forever. A gift, a true gift to our family, and we miss it deeply.
I'm sure. So what's something that has helped the process?
I think, several things, but one thing that really I was desperate to find and has turned into a lifeline for me, to live this life, the rest of it that I have without Michael, has been having relationships and community with other mothers, other families, but for me specifically, other mothers who have also lost a child, because I just feel that nobody can truly understand that unless you've lived it. And when this happened to our family, I couldn't imagine how I would survive, without Michael. So I was in a desperate place to find another mom who was still standing and could say to me, there's a path, there are steps forward when you feel like you have no idea how you're even going to take the next breath, let alone the next step. So having those women has made a tremendous difference in my life. And I had a real gift of one mom in our community who I didn't know. I had heard of how she lost her child to a very tragic and awful accident. And she left an 8-page letter on my front porch introducing herself. And I still read that letter sometimes when I'm thinking of how I can put words together to offer to another mom that I've been connected with. She gave me all the time and all the space. But once, I met her, we're, moms of the heart, and we'll be friends forever. Another mother came into my life when we were still in Chicago. And after that, we moved to California. And I now have a group of moms. We started as 3. We've grown to a larger number. And it's just, we are there for each other, whether we live close or not. It is a lifeline and a group of comfort that I can't imagine not having in my life, and especially in this path.
That's amazing. I think that's kind of the reason for this book, is to help people find that community, that resource, that connection with somebody else who's been there or is there. Building that community is a big deal. Trunnis, anything you'd like to add?
One thing I do want to say is what you are doing now, and you are going to facilities, and in Michael's honor, you're going to sports facilities to make sure you're putting defibrillators and what have you in those facilities. I know I shared a story. I was at a hockey rink just a couple of weeks ago, and I'm at a hockey rink more than a couple of weeks, but a couple of weeks ago I went, and I remember purposely looking to see if they had one there, and I thought of your son. Again, like Aaron, you are trying to make it easier for others, parents, and make sure they do not have to experience the same thing that you did. And your strength is, your strength of your entire family is fantastic. And it's funny that you're talking about a Bills game. I'm in a hotel today because I'm actually going to go to a Bills game to see with my son tomorrow. We're in Indianapolis to see the Bills.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and it's funny. And the other thing I was saying, the greatest thing about being a Bills fan and a Cubs fan is, number one, you the colors are the same.
It's true.
So you don't have to worry about, like, you can wear like a red and a blue shirt, you'll be all right. Just there you go.
It's so true. Well, we'll be watching. We don't miss a game, Trunnis, and we actually bring Michael's jersey out and have it in our family room. Our dogs have kerchiefs on. We're a little nutty, but so that
Bills fans, you got to be that. Yeah, we're not right. Bills fans, yeah. It doesn't matter what your it doesn't matter anything about it. You're Bills fans we do all that stuff. But yes.
It's fun. Well, it's like the Cubs. You walk a really long path till you get that one big win. And Michael actually. The Cubs won the World Series the year that we lost Michael. So we lost him this June of 2016, and then they won the World Series in October, which he predicted on his sports blog. So actually, my husband and I went to 3 of the games that year to be there for Michael. And so we saw them bring that in. Maybe one of these days we'll see the Bills do the same, I hope. Yeah, I would just want to add one more thing if I could, and maybe to offer to other people, because Heather, you mentioned this earlier, and we all feel this way, and you'll see it in our stories when you read the book, is I've never heard like grief illiterate. I think that's a grief phobia. That's so spot on, and it's hard to know what to say, but a person that was a friend, but more of an acquaintance, kind of a football mom in my life. I ran into her when I finally got enough courage to get myself out of the house and just go walk through a store. I just kind of lost myself, in a store one day. And I had a couple experiences where I had gone to a store and people intentionally saw me and they were nervous and they avoided me. They went down the next aisle. But this woman saw me and she walked over and she said, Christy, I don't want to say anything that would cause you more pain. Can I just give you a big hug? And I just thought that has stuck with me, and will forever. And if someone's looking for something to say, that meant a lot to me at that time.
Yeah, no, that's really good. Heather, anything you would like to add?
Just to tag on to what Christy said, it's like, this isn't something to try to fix or rescue us from. This is our new normal. And so just show up in that space. And so I think that's so beautiful. She's like, I just want to give you a hug. I think that's amazing. And you said something earlier, like about needing to find a path. And so looking to others who have walked that before you. And I think that's so true with grief. It's so disorienting, confusing. We feel like we're in this fog, and how am I going to find my way out of this? And so I think that was so smart and lovely that you were able to find and connect with other moms who've had that shared lived experience, and have been able to build such community around that. I think that's so beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I love that. And yeah, it's not, there's nothing you can say. It's the love that they need. That's what they need. They just need your love. They need your, like she said, a hug. That's what, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can say.
Right.
You can't make it better.
Right.
But a hug is amazing.
Mhm.
And some people don't like to be hugged, so ask first. Uh, some people
Yeah.
just can't. And sometimes you're in that space where if they hug you, you're going to lose it. So seriously, ask first. But
Yeah, she did. That was really, really.
yeah, I mean, really ask first, because sometimes you're just not in a place that you can be hugged.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all about personal boundaries. Or ask, what is there something that you need? There's nothing you can really do, but ask what they need. I mean, I know a knee-jerk reaction is, oh, they need food. Well, not necessarily. Yes, maybe they do need meals for a week or two. I know that's like what churches always do. Let's get them meals for the week or whatever, which is great.
Hey, Nicole, can I interrupt?
Yes, please.
So sorry. That phrase, like, what do you need? A lot of times grievers don't know. And so that question puts a lot of responsibility and overwhelm on the griever. And so when you think about, what our circles of support look like we have the doers, we've got the holiday season coming up, right?
Yeah.
Do you have doer friends who are putting up, like a neighbor who's putting up their lights, like, hey, I'm putting my lights up, I'm going to come put yours up too. Like,
nice.
You've got doer friends, you've got the respite friends, the distractors. Hey, Dancing with the Stars is on, I'm coming over tonight, and we're just going to watch that. We don't have to talk, but we're just going to watch Dancing with the Stars. And then you have the listener friends, the ones that can show up in that nurturing, vulnerable, holding space. Like, we're just going to sit, I'm going to hold your hand. And if you want to talk, great. If you don't want to talk, that's okay. I'm here to listen. I'm bringing coffee, So I think it's hard when we ask grievers to tell us what you need, because often they don't know.
Yeah.
And it feels like, well, I don't want to be a burden. My grief is so big and overwhelming, so I'm just not going to say anything. And then we end up not reaching out, which makes us feel even more isolated when there are people who want to show up for us. So thinking about those three different kinds of helpers, those different people who can show up, and helping lean into their own giftings in that way.
Yeah, I love the thought of just showing up and, hey, we're going to do this today. Because they might just be sitting at home going, I don't know what to do. And I'm just here. I'm surviving today, and then I'll survive tomorrow. And I know that is at the beginning what you are doing is you're surviving. You're just getting through day by day when you begin. That I do know. So I want to again first thank Dr. Trunnis. He doesn't have it up there, but thank Trunnis for doing this anthology, bringing this together, showing his heart. I know the one thing he said to me when his daughter died, he got a pamphlet that said 13 stages of grief, and that was his support. And so that was why he wanted to do this book. He wanted to create something that there's stories that people can relate to, because there's a little bit of everything in this book. But more importantly, at the end of the book, there are resources. There are ways people can reach out. There's places to reach out to. You can reach out to each of the authors. If there's an author that's gone through what you've gone through, reach out to them. That's why we're here, and that's why we did the book. And share this video with your friends and family. If there's somebody that you think would like to hear it, please share it across the board. Get it everywhere. Get it global. These stories matter. These kids matter. We want to share their stories and the parents' stories of how they're getting through each day. Trunnis, is there anything you'd like to say here as we wrap up?
I'm just going to add to what you said. This is, I'm looking at the screen right now, and this is we were talking sports with Christy just a little while ago, and this is a very strong team. This is a strong team of people that are here, that have gone through the fire, and still going through the fire. And unfortunately, as we're speaking, with homicides, with suicides, with drug abuse, with just accidents and things like that, our club that we are a part of is growing every day. And I just want you to know, if you did lose your child, if you know someone who's lost a child, reach out to us. We are strong. We're sharing our story. We don't want you to go through some of the pain that we've gone through. We want to help you navigate through some of that pain. We want to, show you some of the gotchas and get you through what you will go through from now until you're no longer here as well. But thank you.
Thank you so much, Trunnis. Dr. Heather, is there anything that you want to say as we close?
I just feel honored that I got to know each of you, and I'm excited to read all of your stories. And thank you for the work that you're doing, and that you're letting your children be remembered. I think that's so beautiful and such an amazing legacy. And yeah, just thank you. Thank you for letting me be part of this.
Yeah. Thank you, parents. Don't go anywhere. But thank you so much for allowing me the honor of portraying your children in this book, and getting it out there to everyone. Like I said, this is a heart project. I am honored that I have been able to put your stories out there. So y'all go get this book. Go get the Kindle. The Kindle is only 99 cents today. It'll go up eventually. We'll talk about that. But just go get this book. And if you need the resources, please connect with these parents. We're all here to help. And there's so many resources. Connect with Dr. Heather, connect with Trunnis, and all of the parents. We thank you so much for watching. Like I said, share with anybody that you know might need it, and just share, and let's get this thing global, okay? We will see you again soon. For now, bye, y'all.
Bye.